What is happening, everyone? Welcome back to another action-packed edition of CPA Review, the official podcast of Another71.com. As always, I'm your humble host, Jeff Elliott, a licensed CPA in the state of Kansas by the grace of God and to the chagrin of many. Happy Monday to you. Today is Monday, May 8th, 2017. On today's show, you have some CPA exam questions. Hopefully, I have some answers, so let's get started. Holly writes in, I am a recent college graduate going to work for a Big Four accounting firm in the fall. Because I have some time before then, I budgeted 4 months to take all 4 sections of the CPA. I started with the beast and I studied for FAR. I really put in the time and took the exam last week, but I cannot shake the feeling that I failed and it's weighing heavily on me. Because of the new exam format and changes, however, my score is being held for 10 weeks until mid-August. By then, I would have hopefully taken all 4 sections without knowing any of my scores. This is a terrible feeling because I am starting to become unmotivated without knowing if I am tracking score-wise. And worst case, if I fail, I would have to restudy old material instead of it being fresh in my mind. How do I stay motivated not knowing any of my scores? And should I take FAR again before I get my score back in August because I think I failed while it's still fresh in my mind? Well, back in my day, when we had to walk uphill both ways through the snow, take the CPA exam on an abacus, I think that's what they're called. So back in my day, like 2008-ish, oftentimes you wouldn't know your score for like 8 weeks. So those old schoolers like myself, like we kind of feel sorry for you, but not really. So back in the day, we took scores came out in 2 waves, wave 1 and wave 2, and you didn't today you know exactly what day your score is going to come out. Back then we had wave 1 and wave 2, and so you would wait anxiously. Okay, is my score going to come out tonight? Oh, it didn't. I am actually wave 2, which is in like 4 or 5 weeks. I'll wait some more. So I know exactly what it's like to take your exam and then have to study for other exams, not knowing whether or not you passed. And I really don't think, I understand from a motivational standpoint, you like to know, but you just have to assume the best. So even like in FAR, you had a bad exam, assume the best. Like assume you squeaked by with a 76, okay? And keep going, because what's going to happen is your doubts and your frustrations are going to sabotage the rest of your exam scores. And let's say you failed FAR. Well, instead of failing 1, you're going to fail all 4. So easier said than done, I know, but you have to block it out of your mind and just move on. Like thousands of candidates, probably literally hundreds of thousands of candidates have done before you, because like 90,000 people take the exam every year, give or take. So hundreds of thousands of candidates have done before you, and you can do it as well. You cannot take a section, you cannot resit for an exam section until you get your score back, because you can't get another NTS until until it says that until you've passed or failed or whatever. So hang in there, Holly, you'll be all right. Ed says, I graduated college in 2006. I took the summer off and then started studying. I took all 4 parts and failed. Then I took audit and FAR and passed. I could not pass BEC and regulation before losing credit. 2 years had gone by and I gave up. Now I'm looking to get back into studying and passing the exam. For the 4 sections of the test, what order should I take them? FAR, auditing, regulation, and BEC. FAR, auditing, reg, and BEC. There's some overlap between FAR and auditing. There's also some overlap between FAR and regulation, because deferred tax assets, if you take regulation after you've taken FAR, you'll kind of understand what those are, but that's a very minute bit of overlap. So take FAR, then auditing, then regulation, and then BEC. Priscilla writes in, I am currently studying for regulation using Roger CPA Review, and I am a divorced single mother with a 5-year-old princess. However, I am currently not working, so I can completely focus on my CPA exam. I'm sitting for regulation on May 30th, and I'm currently on Section 5, Estates, Trusts, and Gift Taxes, out of 21 sections. How should I tackle the rest of my studying? I am nervous and believe it's way too much material to cover by May 30th. Should I reschedule regulation for July 2017? I graduated with my accounting degree in 2008, and we'll be doing my MAC once I am done studying for the CPA exam. Okay, first question, you should keep your exam for May 30th, and under no circumstances do you reschedule, like unless it's like an emergency and you have to. If you don't keep your date and the studying gets hard and stressful, you will just punt and you'll keep pushing it back and pushing it back. Keep your date, work hard. You are studying full time, so you have like 3 weeks, and there's really no reason why you can't get through all of your material in the next week. You know, put in a 40 or 50-hour week. Sure, you can do that. Like, treat it like your full-time job. Leave the house if you have to. And that's always recommended too, because you need that mental barrier. Hey, I'm going to work today, versus, hey, I'm sitting on the same couch that I watched Netflix last night before I went to bed. You need that mental shift. And so you're on Section 5 out of 21. You have 16 sections to get through in a week. Knock those out. Those are your videos. Then hit your MCQs really hard for a week. And then do your final review for a week. Since you are working, or since you are studying full time, you can spend about a week on the rest of your videos, spend a week on your MCQs, and then spend a week reviewing. And you should be just fine. And then your final point was that you were going to get your MAC after becoming a CPA. I would push back on that and ask why. Normally people get a MAC normally people need 150 hours, so they might as well get a MAC just so that they don't count, so the hours aren't wasted. Okay. But is an employer really going to say, they have their CPA designation, but wait, they have a MAC. They have a Master's of Accountancy. Now I'm really going to hire them. No, it's like, oh, okay, they're CPA and they have a MAC. That's nice. Okay. Like the amount of time and effort to get your MAC after passing the CPA exam is not going to translate into real world value. So, even if it was free, like that's still like 2 years of your life, 2 years of, sorry, princess, mommy's got to study tonight. Sorry, princess, mom has a class. I have a final. Sorry. Like, that's another 2 years of your life. It's another and so the opportunity cost just for your time alone does not equal the value that the MAC will boost your marketability in the job market. So I would not get a MAC after passing the CPA exam. I hope that's helpful. Hani says, I have a question for auditing. When an external auditor uses the work of the internal auditor, to whom does an internal auditor report? All right, so the external auditor uses the work of an internal auditor if they feel like that the internal auditor is competent enough and has, this is not a technical term, but has the vibe of independence. So basically, the external auditor can use the internal auditor to do some of the legwork, running some reports and stuff, to do some of the legwork for the audit. And it helps to make for a more efficient audit. It doesn't help its effectiveness, it helps its efficiency. They can get it done faster. And so if they can use the internal auditor to do some of the legwork, obviously the internal auditor cannot make any judgment calls or anything like that, but they can do some of the legwork. And but what comes into play is the independence of the internal auditor. Obviously, they are not independent because they are an employee of the company that's being audited. And so an external auditor will feel more comfortable using the work of an internal auditor if, like for instance, if they report to the audit committee instead of the CFO or something like that. Because if the CFO is pulling some shenanigans, and if the person who is directly responsible for their work reports, their their evaluations. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. So if the CFO does the work evaluations for the internal auditor, then the internal auditor has some motivation to not rock the boat and maybe stay silent. Whereas if the internal auditor reports to the audit committee, then there is a more of a, again, technical term, a vibe of independence. And so the external auditor will feel more comfortable about using the work of the internal auditor. So hope that's helpful. Frank writes in, probably, I'm not your typical CPA exam candidate. I'm in my late 30s and I have a senior corporate finance position. And I have been a finance director in several countries. I have decided to take the CPA in the past 4 months, and I was able to pass auditing and BEC. Currently, my time is flexible, and sometimes I can study during the day. I have been offered a senior position as a regional financial director for an international market. Likely, this opportunity will disrupt my studies. What will be your advice? Take the new role or pass the 2 exams and see what happens job-wise? My audit credit expires August of 2018. Okay. So taking the better job will impact your ability to study for the CPA exam. But the whole point of studying for the CPA exam in the first place, you didn't really need it. You just wanted to be more marketable as a financial director. Well, I'm assuming that this is the job that you want, or this is a step in the ladder towards that end. And I would, if it were me, obviously you know what your unique goals and needs are. If it were me, I would take the new position, and if the CPA exam fit into it, then I would continue to study. If not, hey, worst case scenario, you have to pass another 2 sections, but I would not pass over the job that you want or the job that is a means to where you want to be in order to keep studying for the CPA exam, which may or may not help you get a similar job in the future. Best wishes to you and your decision. Daniel says, I have 14 days to study for auditing. Unfortunately, I kept delaying the exam due to work. I have an internship. I'm now free from work. Is it doable to finish auditing in 14 days? I have bought the Ninja Notes and was wondering if I should even watch the Becker videos or just do Ninja Notes and Becker MCQs. 14 days. I would read your Ninja Notes as many times as possible and get through your Becker MCQ as many times as possible, and then do that in a week, and then spend your final week doing a final review. I don't think you'll have time to watch all of your videos. However, let's see, you are taking which exam again? Auditing. Okay. So if there is a section of auditing that you are struggling with, let's say audit sampling or the relationships between detection risk and audit risk and all of that, like let's say that there's an area that you feel weak on, and on exam day you just pray that you don't get a simulation over that. I would watch your Becker videos over those specific topics and take notes, and then continue to read the Ninja Notes and work your Becker MCQ. Hope that's helpful. Tracy writes in, I am scheduled to take regulation on July 3rd. All CPA reviews say that the first half of the year is tax from 2016 and the second half is 2017. So here I am thinking I'm going to have to study in 3 days those changes. How familiar are you with this transition in the past with candidates along the journey? I know it shouldn't be major changes, mostly thresholds and stuff. However, this is the CPA exam, and I walked out of BEC thinking it was easy, only to open the score to see a 75. That's pretty good. So you can understand my concern. Also, with these changes, will you be updating the Ninja Notes? If you say July 1st, I may cry. I hope to rewrite about 2 weeks before, and I think it would be awesome if the updates are released before so I can get familiar. Thanks for your response. Keep up the great work. Your story is very inspiring. Thank you, Tracy. Okay. So the exam window ends like May 30th or 31st, whichever one it is. Let's assume May 31st. And most of your CPA review courses, including Ninja, will have the tax updates out by very early June. And so you should be able to study. Should not be an issue. You're correct. The the tax law changes are typically, like, let's say, and I haven't even looked at the estate or the 2017 tax law changes yet. Plenty of time for that here in coming weeks. But let's say that the estate tax threshold changes, and it typically does. So I would know that 179 deduction. If that changes, I would know that. And like if Congress did away with some things that were previously deductible, I would know that. The 2017 tax law changes will not be a huge deal. And so yeah, Ninja Notes will be out and updated early June. And so while BEC may have surprised you, you shouldn't be surprised for regulation. So congrats on passing BEC, by the way. Hope that's helpful. Carol says, I want to study for BEC using my Gleim materials as well as the Ninja Audio. How do I approach that? Follow the Ninja framework using your Gleim materials. If you don't have, well, if you have the Ninja Audio, you should have the Ninja framework. It's free on Another71.com. Apply the Ninja framework to your Gleim materials. I believe it is the best framework. It's just the best methodology for applying your study materials. Ninja Audio. So I would literally just listen to it as many times as possible. Start on chapter 1 in the Ninja Audio. Even if you haven't studied that section in Gleim, just listen to it and try to listen to it as many times as possible. You will find that as you work through your Gleim materials, that because you've listened to the Ninja Audio, you've already covered it a little bit, so the material will stick better. Okay. So I hope that's helpful. Listen to it as many times as possible. Abdi says, I need to pass FAR. Plain and simple. I took it in December and scored a 68. I couldn't really study during busy season and put it off for a while. I have the exam scheduled for May 31st, but I don't want to move on to my new Becker software. I like the format of my old book. I've also seen on Another71 the video on the content changes, and there wasn't much of a change. Do you recommend sticking with my old book and notes and answering MCQs and Sims of the new Becker update? I don't want to watch any of the lectures besides the governmental section. So you scored a 68. Don't want to switch over to the new software. You like the old book. Man, if it were me, I would switch. So I know you don't want to, but I would just do it. So, change is tough. And if you like a certain format and the format changes, welcome to the world of all of the CPA review providers who had pretty good software in place, and then the exam changed. Yeah, change isn't fun. And so, but you have to adapt or die. So, anyway. So yeah, I would switch to the new Becker format and just roll with it and pass. Brooke says, I need your professional advice on my CPA exam situation. I've taken regulation twice and failed each time. I have scheduled to take auditing twice and never went to the exam. Ooh. Now my study material has expired and I don't know what to do. I don't want to sink a bunch of money into it again. And yet at the same time, I really want to get this on and get this passed and move on with my life. I would like to take regulation by the end of May, but I don't know if that's reasonable. If not, I'm thinking regulation at the beginning of July and audit or BEC at the end of August. Then audit or BEC at the beginning of October and FAR in November. What do you think about this? What are your opinions on the order of the tests? Instead of sinking a bunch of money into study materials, I was thinking about still using my Becker books in addition to Ninja Notes and Ninja MCQ. What do you think about this approach? I know the exam changed in my structure, but my Becker books should still be accurate for the information covered. All right. Okay. Well, Brooke, your biggest issue that you're facing is motivation to study, stick with the plan, and carry it through to the end and through exam day. So it's early May. It will soon be mid-May. Is it too late to take regulation, study for regulation? I would say yes. However, I think you can sneak in auditing in 3 weeks if you really, really, really bust it. If you're not going to bust it, don't even try. I would start studying for regulation now and take it early July, as you said. If you want to sneak in an exam by the end of May, take auditing. I studied for auditing in 3 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks, because I procrastinated and I ended up passing. But I worked really hard, and coincidentally, I used the Bisque videos, which are now the Ninja Plus videos. Nice little marketing plug there. I used the Bisque videos to pass auditing in 2.5, 3 weeks. And so maybe you get those too, maybe not. And you said you can get your updated Becker books. That's fine. Ninja MCQ, Ninja Notes. I would do Ninja Notes, Ninja MCQ, and then your Becker book for auditing instead. And if not, obviously take regulation. Start now on regulation and take it in July. And hey, stay motivated. Studying for the CPA exam is not fun. It's tough. It's really expensive. There's 1,000 other things, a million other things that you'd rather do than spend $250, $275, whatever it is now on an NTS and expensive review courses. You know, I understand it makes you want to barf. Makes everyone want to barf. But it will be well worth it when you're on the other side of things. So stay with it. Philip writes in, I don't really have a question, but a thank you for your amazing product. I debated about whether or not to include this, but why not? I was a working student and my grades for my undergraduate were not stellar. I found a start of my career in government, did not start taking the exam. I started using Becker, but I added the Ninja product and it allowed me to use your question bank and focus on the topics that I could not grasp fully. And I like your references and the text in relating to the questions that I did not correctly answer. I managed to finish my CPA exams before the update. So, all right. Congrats, Philip. Thank you. I just feel like including that. So, all right. Daniel writes in. On to questions. Daniel writes in. I've passed auditing and recently passed BEC, and now I'm moving on to FAR. So passed auditing and BEC, moving on to FAR. I failed FAR twice in the past, the last time with a 73, but I'm determined to pass my next retake on July 3rd. However, every time I sit down at the library to study after work, I crack open the material, but cannot focus. I literally open up my study materials, watch a video or two, or read a page, and none of it is really sinking in, and I waste so much time trying to get into the material. Then after an hour or so, I just pack it up and go home and say, okay, maybe tomorrow. Some days I don't even open up the material at all. I also just got a promotion at work, so I'm transitioning to a new position with all the work and stress that comes with that. Lastly, I just want to go out and have a beer after work, or hang out with the wife, friends, family, or binge watch The Sopranos. I guess I'm kind of lost. I've lost steam. I know I still have time, but I'm afraid that if I can't get into a study routine soon, I won't be prepared, especially with a new exam format. I really, really, really want to pass this section in July. I'm looking for tips on how to reset and study the material. Well, it could be that studying after work is not for you. Of course, studying after work isn't for anyone. So, I'm sure people will be like, cry me a river, dude. Just get in there and study. There are certain tasks that I do, like for my business, that I hate, that I don't enjoy doing. And so if I do them in the morning, I'm more apt to do them versus in the afternoon where it takes me like 5 Red Bulls just to get up the motivation. And so maybe you need to study more in the morning, and maybe you need to study at lunch if you can. And if you can't motivate yourself to study after work, then maybe you need to bribe yourself. Like, if I get through this many videos or take this many pages of notes or get through this many multiple choice questions or sims, then I get to have that beer, or I get to go to Orange Leaf, or I get to do whatever. You should probably get home and you should probably go home, pick up your wife, take her to Orange Leaf or to get a beer. That's what you should do. I think you will enjoy studying more or tolerate it more if you have a budget, a strict study budget, because if it feels like you just have to study for as long as you can, as many hours as you can, versus, hey, I have to fit in 20 hours a week. And so each hour that you study is helps you to get towards that goal. And once you're done, you're done. So you can have your weekend. And I would set a study budget on Another71.com. I have the L plan, the early, lunch, late plan, and it just happens to tie into the first 3 letters of my last name, so that's convenient. So you can schedule using the L plan with the Ninja Study Planner, and that's another trick I would do to budget your time, like budgeting your money. When you budget your money, you feel like you got a raise. When you budget your CPA exam study time, you'll feel like you have more time to like live life. And I would also say, you know what, Friday night, I'm not studying ever. I'm taking wifey out on a date, going to Orange Leaf. Take her out to a restaurant and have fun. And study for 4 hours Saturday afternoon, take the rest of the day off. Study for 4 hours Sunday afternoon, take the rest of the day off. Be realistic with your study schedule. And I think if you can actually sneak some life in while studying for the CPA exam, you will hate it less. Final question. Rich writes in, my scores are as follows using Becker. BEC, 69. FAR, auditing and regulation, 72. I need to get over the hump. What is your suggestion for the best Ninja package to use? I need to pass all 4 sections by September 30th of 2017. If you're going to keep using Becker as your full review course, then I would get the Ninja Notes and Ninja MCQ. And if you have a commute, then the Ninja Audio as well. If you're going to use Ninja, if you want to use some elements of Becker and study with Ninja as your full-time package, then I would get the 10-point combo. It includes the book, the Ninja Plus videos, the Ninja Blitz Cram, the Ninja Audio, Ninja Notes, Ninja MCQ, etc., the Ninja mobile flashcards, and all that. So if you're going to use it as a supplement, Ninja Notes and Ninja MCQ as a minimum. I'm biased because it's my product, so I say Ninja Audio as well. You can test drive it on Another71.com and see if you'll actually use it as you commute. If you're going to use it as a full study program, use the 10-point combo. All right, that does it for this edition of CPA Reviewed. I hope this has been helpful. If you have a question, if you need some help, if you want to be on the podcast, go to Another71.com and click Ask Jeff at the top of the page, and it will appear in a future edition of the podcast, hopefully the next one. I'm trying to do them weekly now. I hope this has been helpful, everyone. So be good, take care, and I will talk to you soon.